Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. So the hotfix patch notes have just been released via Overwatch 2, and we are in for some very big changes moving forward for this game. Now this is really exciting because again, we've had so many times where players have been, obviously complaining about a lot of the issues in the game thus far, and Season 2 was kind of off to a rough start. But I think now with more voices being heard in the community, these hot fixes are really appreciated. And so let's get into them. So right now we know that the tank, category has been very oppressive recently with the likes of Doomfist and Roadhog. Now Roadhog, they've mentioned that they're going to be releasing more information about him in the mid-season patch, which is most likely next year. So look forward to that. But of course, the other elephant in the room was none other than Doomfist himself, and so they've toned him down. They've reverted his cooldown from his rocket punch back to 4 seconds, which is good. And his power block, minimum damage mitigated required to empower his rocket punch, has been increased from 80 to 100. So now what this means is that he's going to have to work a little bit harder to get that extra damage to basically, power himself up. And then the best defense, temporary health gained per target, has been decreased. So now he's not going to be gaining as much health, which means again he's going to have to play a little bit more focused. He can't just be all in. He's going to have to be a little bit more considerate about how he approaches enemies and pretty much goes into the back line. His game plan again has to shift a little bit. Does that mean he's terrible? No. I think these changes are necessary, and I think they are in a way great to balance him a little bit more, tone him down just a little bit more, and make him still viable in the right hands, but not so oppressive to the point where everyone's trying to use them and no one's having fun. Now, this one is massive because Orisa was never mentioned in the patch notes whatsoever, and so for her to be actually, a part of this hotfix is fantastic because Orisa has been a character in Overwatch 2 that has been honestly slept on. She's been a very strong counter pick rather, against the likes of Doomfist and with Roadhog. And so having these changes to her kit, most notably Terror Surge, going through barriers, is just insane. So now what this means is whenever you're up against a shield based character, like let's say Reinhardt or Sigma, or even the case of Ramattra, now your Terror Surge, your ult, will go through that, which is going to be great, which means that now Orisa is going to have more opportunity to pressure enemies and basically lock them in place whenever she goes for her ult, making her ult that much more viable in those scenarios where you need to capitalize. Her augmented fusion driver, which is her main source of damage fall off range increased from 15 to 25. This is massive. That extra 10 meters is really great because what this means now is Orisa can really plan and strategize her entry. She's really a brawler type of unit in Overwatch 2, but now with this ability to have more damage fall off increase means that she can poke you from a range and really try to strategize her entry. So she can poke you and inch her way in slowly, and once she gets into once she gets into that comfort zone, she can start pummeling you and just do all the javelin damage and everything else she's so good at. And so this is fantastic because then this really adds to her neutral game. She doesn't necessarily have to push in too aggressively. She can walk her way in, and once she gets close enough, that's when she can do all of her juicy damage. So this is great. This is a surprising yet very welcoming change for Orisa. Now here, my homie right here, this is I've been saying this for so long, and I'm so happy that I can finally shut people up from talking about how quote-unquote bad Ramattra was and blah. This character has always been a great character. I've always believed that Ramattra in the right hands, and if you play him correctly, he is fantastic. He is really at his core a defensive unit. And so when you're able to utilize his Nemesis form and Void Barrier defensively, you get so much more value. So now his Nemesis form being buffed is fantastic because now this gives him more chance to really further emphasize that defensive capability. And so the movement speed increase from 20% means he's going to be harder to hit at least. He can move around faster, making his movement a bit more unpredictable. And his armor bonus is increased from 150 to 225, making him that much more bulky, which is great. So now you can still poke from mid-range to long range. And if you haven't watched my video on my part 1 about the best maps for Ramattra, definitely check it out. I think you'll be very intrigued as to what maps you'll be good on. Look forward to part 2 very soon. But these changes, I think, are fantastic for him because, again, this gives him enough of a movement buff where he doesn't feel like a slug on the field. He can move around, he can apply pressure, and when necessary, pop his ult and do all the necessary damage for the team. So this makes him, again, an offensive threat, but also a defensive threat all the same. And then the Void Barrier in his Omnic form, this cooldown reduced from 15 to 13 kind of balances things out. It makes it so that he can be in his Nemesis form long enough to sustain and help his team, protect his team. And then once that cooldown is back up, he can just put that Void Barrier up and start playing his poke game from mid-range behind the shield. So all in all, I think these changes are wonderful for Ramattra. And so Ramattra, I feel, is definitely going to be a very, very viable, very highly sought out character in the meta, and we'll likely be seeing him a lot on the ladder moving forward. I for one am happy because, again, I main him. I love the character a lot. I main him and Junker Queen, and from what we've heard, Junker Queen is also going to be getting changes as well down the pipeline. So Junker Queen mains, Ramattra mains, get excited, get hype. It's our time to shine now. So another elephant in the room, another big one, is Sojourn. Sojourn now has received some substantial nerfs, and most notably her railgun. I think this is really, really important here because her railgun is really where her damage output comes from, right? So her primary fire spread increase is really, really impactful. It means that she now has to kind of put herself closer in the fight. She can't really be at a far distance anymore and shoot you and one-shot you. She now has to put more effort into basically, you know, locking you down. And if she can't do that, then again, this fire spread increase is going to be substantial for her. So this is a great nerf. I think this just tones her down a little bit more. It makes it so that now she's not oppressive from far range. She has to work her way in and do more close range damage. Disruptor shot is massive because now this no longer will slow you. This was annoying to deal with, especially when you're playing characters who are already slow to begin with. Now you remove that. So being able to no longer disrupt and cause enemy slows or just movement slow is fantastic for her, or just everyone in general. Everyone can celebrate. I think this is really, really good for her, and not being able to just pressure you from any angle is going to be great. Power slide, the cooldown increase from 6 to 7 seconds is also a good change. This just means now that she can't just go crazy and spam her power slide, which again is arguably one of the best abilities in the game because it just creates so much value for Sojourn to play at any angle. She can basically engage, disengage at any given moment. Now this basically means that she's going to have to be a little bit more self-aware as to when she utilizes it. So players have to be more mindful. So overall, I think these changes are wonderful. Again, the railgun being the most prevalent, just now you had to play more close range to get more value. Disruptor shot, you can't slow anymore, which is fantastic. It means you can kind of run away from all of that. And power slide, again, now she can't spam it. She's going to have to be a little bit more self-aware as to where she puts herself on the map. Tracer, this is a welcoming change. I think this was fine because, again, that additional damage boost from 5 to 6 earlier was a little bit too strong, perhaps, for a lot of players. And so being able to reduce it right back down to just a little bit of a 0.5 damage reduction is great. It still means that Tracer is really, really good in the right hands. She's not a terrible character at all. I think she's also very slept on. A lot of players just don't use her because she's a very high skill cap in this game, and you have to really master her abilities, especially her blink, to really get the most value out of her kit. So reducing her damage from 6 to 5.5 is good. It just means that she'll still do damage, but not as much as what she once was in the first week of the Season 2 patch. Now this was also really substantial, and this is a really good one for support mains, especially for Ana mains out there. Ana now is going to be getting a damage and healing increase from 70 to 75. That's really good. And her biotic grenade effect duration increased from 3 to 4 seconds. So now that anti is going to be doing a lot more for you. You're going to get a lot more value on the field. So being able to use this and getting the extra duration means that now the likes of, say, Ana and maybe even Junker Queen down the road may have a good team chemistry and synergy. So Ana mains, get excited. This is really good for you guys. I'm happy for support mains now. There's some viability there. And lastly, we have Kiriko. Suzu, we all know Suzu has been a little bit of a headache for some people, especially her invulnerability duration time. So now that's been reduced from 1 to 0.85. Now that seems very small, but again, you know, these little small changes are really, really effective, just because you don't want to nerf the character to the ground to the point where now nobody wants a player. I still think Kiriko is extremely fun to play, extremely viable in the right hands, and her overall kit is really, really wonderful for just creating an impact when needed, especially her ult. So being able to have her Suzu reduced just ever so slightly is really good. It still makes it effective if you know how to use it properly, but it's not to the point where it's just, you know, annoying and you know, you can't really optimize it when you're on the opposing side of it. So all that being said, you know, hopefully this has given you folks a good idea as to what to look forward to, what to expect. Mid-season isn't until the new year, so again, we have plenty of time to just enjoy the fruits of our labor, or at least the fruits of Blizzard's labor, the developers. They've given us a good chunk of information to digest and utilize. So hopefully this has given you folks some excitement to look forward to. I, for one, again, I'm hyped for Ramattra. I'm going to be using him a lot in the new comp season. And of course, with Junker Queen's buffs down in the new year, I'll definitely be going back to her full time. But for now, Ramattra is great. I'm looking forward to using him once comp drops. And so look forward to more guides on him in the near future. Until then, thank you so much for tuning in. Look forward to more guides and more educational content. Keep it locked right here on New Frontier. Peace.